I will now call to order the April 14th, 2025 City of Abilene, Kansas City Commission meeting. Shayla, may we please have a roll call?
Mayor Ryan,
Here.
Commissioner Witt,
Present.
Commissioner Kohlhoff,
Here.
Commissioners Miller and Meisenberg are absent. Roll call complete.
Okay, can we please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. Okay, your first item is approval of today's agenda.
Mr. Mayor, if you would, please, I would like to move item 7A to discussion. So I guess I would make that 8B, if you would. Reasoning, we had asked for some additional information from some relevant parties. And I think there's really we're not under the gun to get that passed. So I'd like to give everybody time to consider that information.
Okay, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Motion has been moved and seconded. Do we have any further commission discussion? Seeing none, we do a roll call vote. Commissioner Witt?
Yes.
Commissioner Kohlhoff?
Aye.
Myself, no. Motion carries. Our next item is the consent agenda, which consists of the meeting minutes for the March 24th, 2025 regular meeting.
Move to approve as written.
I'll second. Motion has been moved and seconded. Do we have any further commission discussion? Seeing none, we do a roll call vote. Commissioner Kohlhoff?
Aye.
Commissioner Witt?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries. Our next item under public comments and communications is 6A, public forum. If there's anyone that would like to address the commission on an item not on our current agenda, they may do so at this time.
Mr. Mayor, I will speak. Thank you. First, I want to thank my fellow citizens who continue to reach out to me in support of this cause. I stand today before you with a heavy heart, burdened by the state of our city. We are plagued by the incompetence of our city manager and the complicity of a city commission that seems determined to shield him from accountability. I stand before you today seemingly as the lone voice on that commission demanding change, and I will not be silenced. For too long, we have witnessed a pattern of failures, projects and budgets mismanaged, and promises broken. Yet these concerns continue to fall on deaf ears. The city manager, despite a demonstrable record of ineptitude, remains firmly entrenched in his position. Let's talk about the Golden Belt Heights RHID project. And Mr. Mayor, since you've requested, let's put that on the agenda for next meeting. Mr. Marsh, an overpaid so-called developer, Ross Vogel, failed to timely file the required paperwork, causing the city to miss out on a year's worth, probably tens of thousands of dollars of tax revenue, which could have been captured if the paperwork had been filed timely, as a competent manager would. Let's talk about the Industrial Park Development Grant. This was approved by the legislature in April of 2024, almost a year ago to the day, and awarded to Abilene in June of 2024, before the 2025 budget had been approved. Yet Mr. Marsh failed to take any action to ensure that this important project would be funded. These are not isolated incidents. They're symptoms of a systemic problem. A city manager who has demonstrated a lack of aptitude for his job, and a city commission that lacks the courage to hold him accountable. I've raised these issues repeatedly, only to be met with resistance and dismissal by my fellow commissioners. The citizens of Abilene are good, hardworking people. We contribute our lifeblood and our taxes to this city. We expect our city officials to do the same. We expect them to be good stewards of our resources. We expect them to work in our best interests. But what do we get? We get a city manager who operates with impunity, shielded by a commission that prioritizes expediency over the needs of the great people of this city. This is not a matter of partisan politics. This is a matter of basic competence and accountability. This is about demanding that all of our people, elected and hired, uphold their oath to serve the people. The citizens of Abilene deserve better. We deserve a city manager who is qualified, capable, and committed to serving our community with focus and integrity. We deserve a city commission that is willing to exercise its oversight responsibilities, to ask the tough questions, and to demand results. Therefore, I call on each and every one of you to join me in demanding and being the change that Abilene needs to thrive. Let us hold our elected officials accountable. Let us demand the resignation or removal of our current city manager. And let us elect leaders who will put the interests of the people first. The time for complacency is over. The time for action is now. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else that would like to address the commission on an item not on our current agenda? Okay, if you could just please state your name and address for us when you approach the podium.
My name's Tony Freeze. It's my wife Judy. Kind of getting older, but I've been selling fireworks for well over 50 years. And to start out with, I'd sure like to appreciate and let you guys know how much we appreciate you guys giving us the opportunity to sell fireworks here in Abilene. 250 years ago, next year, it's going to be a big celebration. And quite frankly, we are all very, very, very fortunate to be Americans and citizens and the freedom that we have. We have a lot of loyal customers, and you have a lot of loyal people in your community. And as you know, there's nothing you can do that's going to keep everybody happy, no matter which side you're on. But for the 4th of July, for our independence and people to celebrate, it would be really nice this coming year. And you guys did a great job last year, but you let people shoot on the 5th and 6th, I believe. I don't remember, but I know on the 5th. We couldn't sell that day, but they could shoot. And you would be surprised how many people came in and said how happy they were that the city allowed that to happen. Well, the 4th is on a Friday this year. And as we all know, there's going to be a lot of people that's going to shoot Friday night. But there's many 4ths, and I can remember a lot of them as many years as I've sold, that have actually been inside because it's rained or stormed. So the 5th, if they'd be enabled to shoot, I know they'd appreciate it. And for anybody selling, we all appreciate that too. So I'd like for you guys to consider that. And even next year, look at the calendar ahead of time, because the way it's going to fall. I know our distributors, they'll tell us next year should be a really good year. But as you know, the state of Kansas is legalizing fireworks sales year round. That's something you guys can think about also. But I'm hoping that never happens in our community or in the Chapman community for year round. However, that's just my opinion. With that though, I came over today to ask you to please consider letting us or letting people shoot on the night of the 5th, and consider whether you want us to sell and allow them to shoot. And my wife and I, we don't even agree on this, but I'll tell you what she would tell you. I told her I think it'd be nice if we wouldn't be selling on the 30th. We'd just sell the 1st through the 5th and not the 30th through the 4th. She said she thinks it's really nice we can sell on the 30th because we have a lot of people that like to buy on the 30th. I said, well, I'm glad that we're not making that decision. The Abilene City Council will be making it. But I want to throw that out to both of you, because typical example of whatever you decide, somebody's going to want something just a little bit different. And the last thing I would leave you with, and I know you have a lot of people in the community and other people that sell fireworks, but I will pledge to you that we never, ever will sell anything illegal. And we will definitely don't want that to happen. And if it happens, I think people should be banned, taken away, because we want to continue to sell fireworks and want you guys to allow it. So with that, thank you so much for allowing us to talk today. And thank you, because I just came up and I said, I'd like for them to consider maybe letting people shoot on the 5th, and she said, we'll get back to you, so I appreciate the call back.
Yeah, thank you, Tony, and that should be up, we'll be approving that here and it should be.
Commissioners, with the change in the state laws to some of these things, we will be evaluating that and then bringing it, asking Aaron, excuse me, the city attorney to his recommendations, and then we'll bring it to you guys for
So we'll just basically
with our
revamp
recommendations.
ours
If
around
I'm
the legislature.
remembering correctly, as far as the times we allowed to shoot, we kind of anticipated this when we changed the dates last year. And what I'm remembering, looking at the calendar here, is, and don't quote me on this because this is off the cuff, but I think we had anticipated a 1st through 5th sales and maybe allowing fireworks on the 6th, which is Sunday as well. But don't quote me on that. That was just kind of what I'd remembered from our discussion last year when we approved it.
Yeah, I think we set it annually, or we adjusted it last year, but yeah,
I think we just had a little foreshadowing of that.
yeah.
If I'm not
So we
mistaken.
can tweak it this year with the calendar, so. Okay, do we have anyone else that would like to address the commission on an item not on our current agenda? Please state your name and address for us when you make it up here.
Crady. John Crady, Crady Fireworks, 618 South Buckeye. And I'm for selling on the 5th, and then I'm okay with the 30th. So it's just a day extra on the 5th, so I'm all for it.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else that would like to address the commission on an item not on our current agenda? Okay, seeing none, we will move into 6B, Arbor Day proclamation. Whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees. And whereas this holiday called Arbor Day was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska. And whereas Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the vitality and beauty of our community, and provide an inviting environment for visitors. And whereas the National Arbor Day Foundation has recognized the city of Abilene as a Tree City USA for the past 33 years and desires to continue tree planting and care. Now therefore, I, Brandon Ryan, Mayor of the City of Abilene, Kansas, with the City Commission, do at this moment proclaim April 25th, 2025 as Arbor Day in the City of Abilene, and urge all citizens to celebrate Arbor Day and to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands. And further, I urge all citizens to plant trees to gladden the heart and promote the well-being of this and future generations. In testimony, I have hereunto set my hand and caused to be affixed the Great Seal of the City of Abilene, Kansas, this the 14th day of April, 2025. Do we have anyone that would like to take a picture with the proclamation? Right. Our next item under business items is 7B, consider approval of a bid for the purchase of a truck for the water treatment plant. Public Works Director Anderson.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Brad Anderson, Public Works Director. We're back here today as a business item to once again present the information that was given during discussion on the truck that we're wanting to replace for the water treatment plant. We accepted bids through March 17th at 1 o'clock. And once again, the results were as follows. For Valor Automotive was $44,675 at the low bid. Home Automotive Center was $45,187. Paul MacArthur was $46,400, all comparable trucks that we gave the specs for. We basically left the recommendation up to you as the commissioners to either accept Valor Automotive's low bid or award the bid to Home Automotive as a local purchase because it falls within the 5% threshold for purchasing according to the purchasing policy. I think those were the two that were in play. The only other information that I did gather, just so you know, that the price on the truck from one of the dealerships was $50,985 if you're just a customer walking in the door. Basically, we discussed this in brief detail that it was we received fleet pricing basically. So that reduction of $5,798 basically in their world helps offset that depreciation value as if you drive it off the lot. So we're already getting a dealer price. You and I wouldn't be able to go to any of these dealerships and buy the vehicle, the brand new vehicle for the price that the city's getting offered to. I know that there was some brief discussion about used. Personally, I don't even want to go that way. I didn't. Basically, I wasn't directed by the entire commission to look into that, and I think it'd be difficult, in my opinion, to look at bids when you start looking at a used vehicle, comparing years, comparing mileage, comparing basically everything that would go into it. Any other questions?
I know there were some questions on that warranty.
Mhm.
Do you want to go over that real quick too? I know Ross, I don't think he had it right in front of him last time.
Sure. So we were informed, this was from Home Chevrolet, just an FYI, in case you wanted to go that way, that the new truck will have a 36,000 mile bumper to bumper warranty, just like all new vehicles. But then the powertrain itself would be a 5-year, 100,000 miles. So that's basically an extra 40,000 miles on the powertrain. Any other questions? Okay, we'll let you discuss. And like I said, it comes down to the two, in my opinion. We have low bid or we have a bid not much more that falls within the 5% local.
Okay.
Okay.
Do you have any further questions for Brad or other city staff?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to award the bid to Home Automotive Center in the amount of $45,187.
I'll second. Motion has been moved and seconded. Do we have any further commission discussion? Seeing none, I'm going to roll call vote. Commissioner Witt,
Yes.
Commissioner Koloff,
Nay.
myself, yes, motion carries. Our next item is 7C, consider approval of the amended and restated city manager employment agreement. This is really up to us, so we can have discussion on this item. There's really no staff questions or anything like that.
I think just as a point of order, this really does belong on as a discussion item since this is the first time it's hit the agenda. And I think maybe double down on that given the lack of attendance today.
City Attorney Martin, if you just want to highlight, this is only a single change to this compared to what the current agreement says.
The agreement is an amended and restated agreement, which amends and restates the prior amended and restated agreement, but the only substantive change is shown in section 11, and there's a red line version reflecting all changes to the existing agreement. The original contract between the city and Mr. Marsh provided for an annual review with a clause that allowed for a review at any additional time as the city commission so desires. And at the last go around, I believe in early 2024, the commission approved an amendment to add the language that would now be stricken, but it provided, in addition to the annual review, there'd be a quarterly review to discuss and evaluate progress towards various performance objectives for the current year, and I guess that quarter. This change strikes that, so we would be going back to the once a year plus any other time the city commission desires. So there's nothing that prohibits you from still doing quarterly reviews if that's your desire, or even more or less frequently. It would just be removing that requirement. And that there's no other changes.
What were the non-substantive changes, just for the record?
The recitals from the previous draft recited where we were coming from. And I think at that time we were amending the original agreement. Now we're amending the amended and restated agreement. So I don't perceive those as substantive. They don't affect any of the city commissioners, or excuse me, the cities or the city manager's rights or obligations. Just telling the story.
As I stated, I would still I think this really needs to be on a study session, hopefully with all 5 members of the commission in attendance. I would say to address the substantive issues here, to call what we did a review was a joke. And so from that perspective, we might as well just throw that away. There was previously, when we've done quarterly reviews, there's been some type of preparation. This one, we just went into the room and after there was enough patting on the back, I walked out of the room. So maybe it got really good after I left, but I don't think that our city manager needs less oversight. And so I would not be in favor of these changes. Happy to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, we've never had any formal preparation for quarterly reviews. It was always more of a discussion. I know if we ever have any issues, I talk whenever. So that's why I do like the really reviews at any time that the commission wishes. I mean, if there is something that we need to discuss and the majority of the commission agrees on that, we can enter into an executive session and discuss it. It's just going back to what we were originally at.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the amended and restated city manager employment as written.
And I'll second. Motion has been moved and seconded. Do we have any further commission discussion?
I'm just pointing out that the commission reached consensus about these changes, and Commissioner Koloff decided not to participate. So,
Commissioner Witt, if that's true, you've taken action in a closed meeting without
reaching consensus, here's the public action. You can reach consensus in executive session. You have an misunderstanding of what executive session's for.
I think you're on thin ice.
Do we have any further commission discussion? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Koloff,
Hell no.
Commissioner Witt,
Yes.
myself, yes, motion carries. Our next item is, under items for discussion, is 8A, first quarter treasurer's report. Finance Director Johnson.
Wanted to get it to you prior to having the deadline of the end of the month being published in the newspaper, since our, sorry, distracted. I just wanted to get it to you earlier than later. So if you have any questions.
Do we have any questions for Finance Director Johnson on the first quarter treasurer's report? And do you have any idea when this will be posted in the newspaper?
Whenever I tell her to, as long as it's done before the end of the month.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, seeing none, we will move to 8B, consider approval of a funding option. This is under items for discussion, mind you. Consider approval of a funding option for the Industrial Park Infrastructure CCLIP 2026 project and the recreation improvements in the amount of $9,150,000. And this is with the governing body. So do we have any discussion on that since the last meeting?
I believe we had asked the finance director for a couple of information items.
I thought that I sent something out right away afterwards. I thought I addressed all the questions at that time. It's the first thing I do on Tuesday.
City Attorney Martin, I had someone bring a concern to me and they said, and again, I know that there's tons of exceptions here, so I just want to make sure we're clear. Essentially, we have approved a revenue stream for the recreation facility, the recreation improvements. We've estimated that to be $4 million. This person stated to me that they don't believe that we can approve other funds unless there is a revenue stream to pay for them. And I know that there's a quick Google tells me there's a mountain of exceptions to that, but I wanted to get your take and maybe Finance Director Johnson as well.
Well, if I understand your question right, and feel free to correct me. One question for you. When we talk about revenue streams, in what context can you give me an example?
Well, let's use the ones in front of us here. So with the recreation improvements, we have identified a revenue stream, a sales tax that will pay that off. Now, for the example of the other projects, there is no revenue stream. There is no projected revenue stream to pay those off. Does that make sense? So essentially, what we're doing is unbalancing our budget by bringing up expenses that have no revenue to offset them.
But we would prepay for those projects via the issuance of bonds, correct?
Well, it's the payment for the bonds that is the issue, is my understanding. So yes, we can generate the bonds, but we have to pay off the bonds. So there's no revenue to pay off those bonds, but not the project themselves. But
Got it. I understand your question. So the city is subject to cash basis law, which means that we cannot incur financial obligations that exceed the current budget year in any given calendar year. And Ms. Johnson can correct me based on her role at any point if I get off track here, but that's the general rule for cities. We operate on a cash basis. And so if we were to enter into a long-term annual contract that required payments to be made by the city, we would need to stipulate in the contract that is subject to annual appropriation. Otherwise, we would be binding ourselves and future governing bodies to those financial commitments that go beyond the current budget year. There are one of the most notable exceptions that allows cities to fund projects is issuance of general obligation bonds and to repay those bonds. And that is an explicit exception in the cash basis laws. And they're backed by the full faith and credit of the city and its taxing powers. So a buyer of those bonds knows that if there is insufficient cash on hand, the city is obligated to generate such cash through any means and methods it can, which would be likely taxing within the city.
Okay, and to follow that up, I did find some statutes that stated that is what you've said is true, but then to do that, to approve those bonds, it has to be taken to a vote of the public.
I'm very deferential to bond counsel when we get into this subject, but I do not understand that to be true in all cases. There are likely dozens of statutes that authorize cities to issue bonds for various types of projects. It would not surprise me if some of those require an election. I think generally, if a representative from Gilmore and Bell were here, they would tell you there are exceptions where the project can be authorized and bonds can be issued and approved by the city commission without going to a vote. The underlying sales tax that is being relied upon primarily to fund that repayment, and whether that's sufficient or not, I do not know, but that underlying sales tax would of course have to go to an election.
Ms. Johnson, I did not receive any information from you on that.
Okay, I don't have my computer to see if if I missed you on it. I thought that I sent it to
I knew
everybody,
you had sent it out.
unless I,
What were those items?
I'm trying to gather my thoughts here. I think, I parked that and was relying on Ms. Johnson's, usual, acumen in responding to those. I think it was having to do with the funding, like there was some other funds that were targeted that could be potential revenue streams. Does that sound familiar? I take it you got the email. I don't know if maybe you can pull up a response.
I mean, I was comfortable to move forward on this last meeting, so I was just wanting to make sure the rest of the commission was to the point of understanding it, and the different revenue streams are explained in the second paragraph of our one pager here that's been a part of this from the past 3 meetings, so.
that was when the meeting was?
While you're looking at that, I'm confident if there were an election requirement, we would not, I mean, that would be caught because Gilmore and Bell handles the process from start to finish. And there's a detailed prospectus with, it's shared with any buyers of the bonds. And one of the representations the city makes throughout that process is that the issuance followed all formalities and processes required by applicable law. So I would be happy to ask Mr. Eck under what circumstances that's required. I can't, as we sit here, I can't list those off.
Mr. Witt, you mentioned a list of funding. My understanding is that there were some theoretical, but not a solid set of funding sources that were delineated. Do you have those in front of you?
Yeah, those are the ideas.
Excuse me?
Those are the ideas of how it would be funded.
But it's not concrete, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, it's up to future commissions to allocate that during the respective budget years.
There was some discussion on kind of being able to reuse funds in that temporary financing. That was one piece of it. So Commerce, we have to show that we have expended our 30% match, which is a $750,000 before they will reimburse us that 2.5 million. So if we only spent 700,000 from our portion, they would only reimburse us 70% on top of that. So it would deduct from that. They don't, it's upon completion, really. We have to show that the expenses that we've incurred for our match.
Yeah, and I think another question that I maybe posed, and I think had my question answered, there's basically no commingling of funds between projects. Those are absolutely separate.
And then just another point on that would drawdown lines of credit. It's not revolving, so when you draw those funds down, you can never, if you even, say you draw down 2 million and you repay 1 million, you can't draw down that 1 million again.
I guess let's get to the last one, the one we haven't discussed here, and that's the C-CLIP. I guess my intention is still that we fix the streets and not worrying about digging up the drainage, which is about, I don't know, I guess we don't know what the resurfacing cost is, but just looking at other people's projects, I think even with the cost share that we're getting from the state, we could pave 6 blocks or more. And so, again, I'm, I guess, still adamantly opposed to that section. I'm open to the industrial park bond, but adamantly opposed to that last piece.
Okay. Do we have any other questions or comments on this item? Were those the questions that you were thinking of?
Like I said, I'd like to see
Those are the
kind of
ones.
all those funds and where that money comes from. And I apologize, Commissioner Witt, I'm not finding it in our packet here.
So from the second paragraph, the 4 million part of this is, yeah, that revenue source from the special sports complex. And then this ultimately leaves about 1.85 to be left over for potential permanent financing. So that chunk can be funded through a variety of ad valorem, sewer, water and sewer revenue, stormwater revenue, and then also lot sales from the industrial park. So that's what we've talked about. Did I miss anything there, Commissioner Ryan or Mayor Ryan?
No, I think that's, I mean, really when during budget, that's really when we can set that to, even just having it in here doesn't dictate it. Or it can be modified as this commission or future commissions see fit, so. So it's just a good framework. It allows us to pull from multiple different funds to service that remaining debt at the end of it.
Right. I believe we had a member of the public, a former commissioner notably, who mentioned using the street sales tax for this purpose. Is there any guidance within that ordinance or the street sales tax item that was voted on that would limit the use to repairs? I think that was kind of what she had stated, was that it was intended to be used for repairs, not for doing large capital projects.
It was a special purpose sales tax, so we're subject to whatever use limitations were in the ordinance. And I'd have to pull up the ordinance to see exactly how it was phrased. But whatever those parameters are, we would be subject to them. And I think my recollection is that it was broader than just using the word repairs.
City Attorney, are you pulling that up?
Yep.
Okay, I was just gonna, we can wait a minute and that way we have confirmation.
The sales tax that went into effect on April 1st of 2024 stated that the revenue from such sales tax used to fund a local street improvement program and does not expand beyond that. So that gives you broad latitude to fund improvements to local streets.
And if we, I mean, at that point, if we would prefer that to come out of a different fund, we can certainly make that happen.
So in summary, what are the unanswered questions around this right now?
Got a good grip on it.
I think the big question for me is, how do we want to spend our money on streets? I don't know if the commission would be open to looking at what it would take just to do a mill and overlay, or maybe a little more than a mill and overlay, to improve the quality of those streets and see if we can come to a budget number that matches the funds that are coming from the state, rather than spending an additional $1.1 million of taxpayer money for things that may or may not actually help a problem. That's what I'd like to see before I would approve a bond for anything like the C-CLIP project.
I believe that 1.1 was the total city expenditure on it, correct? 1.1 plus the 800,000.
I believe so, and I think it's written a little bit misleading because the total project is 1.1 with 1.9, excuse me. So it is 1.1. Yeah, no, it is correct then.
Is that something the commission would be willing to look at? Would you be willing to look at seeing what it would take to do a street improvement project that didn't cost $1.9 million and just use the state funds to improve that section of Buckeye?
I think that the biggest piece of it is while that street's tore up, we're able to solve some of the stormwater drainage issues downtown
And sidewalk
and
issues.
sidewalk issues. Yes, thank you.
And I mean, again, I'm not sure those are our issues to solve. I mean, those are the responsibility of the property owners adjacent, right?
Stormwater drainage.
Stormwater drainage is an issue, but I don't think that we're gonna, I mean, the issue is far downstream from there. Right? I think everybody's aware that there's an issue. There's no question about that, but I don't know that we've gotten a clear answer that putting new storm drains through 3 blocks for the cost of $1.1 million is gonna do anything to alleviate it. In fact, I think most people agree that that's not the solution. There's a solution that needs to happen that involves drainage south and east of there. So, you know, maybe we fix that and we don't need to spend $1.1 million on drainage in 3 blocks.
It's a little misleading stating 1.1 million to alleviate drainage in three blocks. I mean, we're talking about a total project of $1.9 million, $800,000 reimbursable from KDOT for the 2 projects. While the mill and overlay, while the street is tore up, we're proposing fixing the sidewalks that need repaired downtown, as well as fixing any stormwater drainage inlets and guttering underneath the streets at the time that the road is already tore up. So there's a little more to it than that.
So I guess my question still stands for the city commission is, would you be willing to look and see what we could do with $800,000? Money that isn't going to take a cent from our taxpayers to fix those roads.
While the road is tore up, I'd rather fix the problem as a whole.
We don't even know what the problem is. Like, we know there is a problem with drainage, but the area that we're talking about that was supposed to be in the 2025 project is downhill from the railroad tracks, right? And I understand that the water doesn't necessarily underground, that might not be the case, but I think we know where the issue is. It's in the northeast area. It has to do with the drainage tube. I've heard this, I've been on the commission 3.5 years. I've heard it a bunch of times. There's a tube that's maybe broke or collapsed or something like that, somewhere where we may or may not have an easement that's supposed to drain out to the river.
Yeah, and it's southeast.
Sorry, my
Yeah,
apologies.
no, you're fine.
Yes.
I get confused. Yeah, gets convoluted with the northeast drainage and southeast drainage issues.
Do you want to see what we can do with $800 without putting $1.1 million on a bond for, as you mentioned, future commissions to deal with? I want to know. I'm honestly curious. I have no idea what we could do with $800,000 if we're just focused on fixing roads.
And I also think a part of it, KDOT was dependent on some of the other improvements for their funding. Is that correct? I don't know.
Yeah, and there's the match component, so it's not just $800,000 of KDOT money, it's what our match is to the mill and overlay. When this first, in the early parts of this coming to the commission, there was breakdown budget estimates that showed the mill and overlay versus the concrete work. So all of that's been available in past packets. What I see down there from walking down there is, yeah, it's not gonna, there is those downstream effects or improvements that need to get made, but there's also broken stormwater inlets that look terrible. And then there's there's ridges. We had a business owner come in here when this was originally up for us and said there are sidewalks that are tripping hazards in our main downtown business district. It's one of those things where I do see a city level involvement improving those sidewalks because of safety and access issues, and it is the key part of our downtown thoroughway. So, yeah, it makes the most sense to do all of it at once in my mindset.
I don't know what the averages are, but we seemingly have 30 days a year that it rains maybe. And every day of the year, we need those road surfaces. I think if we're going to spend our resources, I think that's the way we want to look at it now. If we get, maybe we get, $8 million from the sales tax, and then we've got some more choices that we can make. Mr. Marsh, can you clarify the requirements from KDOT on city spend?
Not off the top of my head, I can't. I believe it's a 90-10 match. Brad, you can correct me if I'm wrong.
90, 10 up to 400,000, I believe, on each project.
Yes. And only 400,000 goes towards that section from the railroad tracks to Fifth Street. The other 400,000 is pretty much used on that south section, and it will.
I think we, as Mr. Royer mentioned when he was here, I think we're kind of getting into a sticky territory where we're going to be taking responsibility for some of the sidewalks while expecting other business owners to be responsible for other sections. Mr. Marsh, you seem to be laughing over there. Is there something you want to share?
We did the same thing on the road project in 2024, that C-Clip project. Any of the I guess, rough, broken sidewalks, if you will, those were redone down toward Casey's, St. Andrews, that area.
I'll throw a little insight from what I know, and the difference that that we're falling in with the C-Clip discussion part of it is we're held to the contingency with what the state of Kansas, because it's their highway technically. So the sidewalks in the downtown area and there, you kind of fall within a right-of-way area, and that's the main difference between when we have sidewalk discussions along K15/Buckeye, and then why we don't have the same sidewalk discussions on any other downtown area or something. Some of them contingencies fall with the state of Kansas actually owning the highway. So that's where some of the cost shares and what's put in is figured in. And I don't have those numbers off the top. I can't remember, but I do believe it was a 90-10 deal. So
can you clarify that for me? Is the state responsible for those highways?
no, because we have a connecting link agreement.
Okay, so it is, I mean, and then by ordinance, it is still the property owners.
But the biggest situation with that is that we, even though there's a connecting link agreement, that we're just responsibility for the maintenance is the big portion of that. Everything that we do technically has to be approved by KDOT, just like when it goes through the C-Clip, it has to be all engineered, approved by them, has to be approved for funding. So some of them contingencies on what's repaired, or suggestions on them. You can get through discussion with the engineering on what can be bygones/gotten away with and what can't. So
I guess I'm still not clear. Is it the responsibility of the property owners for those sidewalks?
right in the downtown area, that is still a very great question because it falls within the state of Kansas right-of-way area. But generally, when all these projects have been done in the past, even throughout other cities, when they do a project like this, they incorporate everything into the scope of the project along the state highway route, the curbing, the sidewalk area. I think the city of Abilene's already done that on the south end in one of them projects. So your direct question of the sidewalks being the responsibility of the property owner, I believe that is a yes, but the contingency of it being along the right-of-way area. There's a gray area that I'd have to get defined a little bit better out of there. From KDOT specs.
I'll defer to the city attorney because he can look up the statute much faster than I can. But for sidewalks, they are the responsibility of the property that abuts the sidewalk. However, the state or the city has the right to go in at any time and fix those sidewalks or do whatever work they want to do to those sidewalks. So yes, we can go in and do whatever we want to do to those sidewalks, but ultimately they are the responsibility for maintenance and snow removal and debris removal, whatever else, with the property owner of the abutting property. Now, the city can certainly go in and make an ordinance that they're going to take care of all the sidewalks. I don't recommend that because that's an expense and time that we don't have, but we can certainly do that, but we don't. We follow the state statute. So, and I will defer to the city attorney to correct me if I'm wrong on those, but that's how I've understood it to be for all these years, so.
I agree with that. The state statute is KSA 12-1808, and we have codified that rule in our city code, as far as I can tell, almost verbatim in section 6-308. It makes the abutting property owner responsible for maintaining the sidewalk abutting their private property.
I guess my question is still hanging there. Would you be willing to see what we could do with $400,000? The state share on that, if it's a 90-10, is $45,000.
You can go back and look at a previous agenda where all those numbers are in there.
I know, I'm not asking you for numbers. I'm asking you as a commissioner, would you be willing to see what we can do with $445,000, whatever the KDOT amount plus the required cost share is for that stretch of streets? Both stretches of streets.
I'm sticking to my point that I said earlier. I think it makes the most sense for me to do all this stormwater improvements, sidewalk resurfacing at once because it's on the state highway. I feel like it just what makes the most sense for the long term. And then it fixes issues along the way in our main downtown business area. So to me, that makes sense. So to answer your question, no.
I understood that. Thank you. I think that you bring up some good issues, but I believe a lot of those are probably cosmetic. Unfortunately, people have to drive on the streets. If things are going well, they're not driving over the drains, which might be dilapidated. But I think we can probably find repairs for those that don't involve digging up the whole drainage system as well. I'm morbidly curious. I'm sure there's a drone or something like that that could be taken through those waterways to get those conditions for much less cost than $1.1 million.
Yeah, and similar to the one on the southern stretch that we completed in 2024. I think that was 24. Yeah, it was 24. If we get in there and certain things don't need fixed, updated, replaced, they won't be. It kind of looks funky right now, but you'll see why there's a patchwork of new sidewalk and existing sidewalk. The sidewalk that was in good condition, we left it. And same thing with stormwater inlets. If they're in good condition, still usable, we'll leave them. But it gives us the ability to fix them, the ones that need it, while the road is already torn up. I don't, especially in downtown and on a state highway that runs through our town, anytime we are doing a project like that, it disrupts traffic and business. So if we are able to correct those issues at the same time that it's already being disrupted, redoing the road, I would prefer that.
I guess I think we've put the cart before the horse like we've done so many times. I think we can figure out what the issues are if we need to do something. If we know that there's an issue that needs to be repaired, let's go find it. We don't have to write a check for future commissions and to figure out how to pay for it and future citizens to pay when we can just do the work today and figure out what the issue is, fix what needs to be fixed. I don't think that that's crazy. I think that's the way most of us operate in our own lives. And I think
we're
it's
saying the same thing.
What's that?
I think we're saying the same thing. The road needs repaired, fix what needs fixed. That's the plan.
But you're saying take out a bond to pay for something that we may or may not need. And to me, let's just figure out if we need it.
Well, this
Like-
is a temporary financing, so if we don't need the funds, we won't draw them down. That's the beauty of doing it this way.
Do you want to take a bet on whether or not those funds get used? You don't seem too certain.
With that, I would recommend approval of option 1 for the industrial park infrastructure C-CLIP 2026 project and the recreation improvements in the amount of $9.15 million.
I second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Do we have any further commission discussion?
I'll be leaving. I'm not present.
Commissioner Witt?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Commissioner Kolhoff? Okay. I will defer to the city attorney on that.
I recommend that you proceed with that item. Does that bring us to the end of the agenda? I'm trying to remember. It does. I recommend that you proceed to the conclusion of the meeting. That will take us into the study session where a quorum is not needed.
Yeah, we do have land bank.
Okay. Well, you can go ahead and finish this up. And in the ordinary course, if there is not a quorum, the governing body cannot meet and take action.
Mhm.
I have not experienced this precise factual scenario before to be able to speak to the legal consequence of it. But I think proceeding to wrap up the meeting would be fine under the circumstances. I think for the time being, we can treat that motion as carrying yes.
How do I even adjourn? I don't mean this as a laughing matter. That's absolutely ridiculous, but
Between the two of you,
genuinely asking
I
it.
recommend proceeding in the ordinary course as you normally would. And if there's a deficiency in that, I don't.
I would recommend we adjourn and you can give the manager's report during the study session.
And we can discuss all the things in the study session since we're not voting on anything. That's good for.
Yeah, and I don't want to make light of the fact that you don't have a quorum up there now, but I think in the ordinary course, if someone steps down in a vote, I could see a scenario where that is not sufficient to stop the vote that is imminent. So that's why, subject to researching that and I guess getting more comfortable, I'd recommend you just proceed. You started with the quorum. Will either be deemed adjourned or by motion and second, you can adjourn. And I recommend just moving forward with that.
I will make,
I'm not aware of why the other two commissioners aren't here. Could either of them be called? Do we want to do that? I don't know.
I mean,
If
we've had it
they're both
before where people
ill.
show up late and they can come in. I don't, I'm at a loss.
This is, yeah, odd.
Just for the final component of this meeting, you're asking if they could come in?
Or
We could recess without adjourning for 5 minutes and get them on the phone. I don't know what to do.
yeah, I don't know what's proper.
Okay. I don't want to stand in the way of what we need to approve.
Right, then we'll adjourn.
Make a motion, we adjourn and move right into the study session.
Yep, second.
Motion has been moved and seconded. Commissioner Witt?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries. We are adjourned. We'll do it again. I will now call to order the April 14th, 2025 City of Abilene, Kansas City Commission Study Session. First item is the Community Forest Management Report. Community Forester Blaine Strobel.
And Commissioners, that was included in your packet, but you also have a hard copy
Yep.
at your seat.
Thank you for being here, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So, as you guys have included in your packet, there is the Community Forest Management Plan that was conducted by the Kansas Forest Service in summer of 2024. I think it is. Oh, I just need to get closer. Okay. Okay, so the Kansas Forest Service conducted a full community inventory of all public trees in the city of Abilene, including all right-of-way trees, all park trees, and anything else included under city management. So this full management plan that you guys have before you is pretty in-depth. I'm just going to kind of buzz through a couple things here on some of our findings. So in total, we collected about 3,300 trees that are part of Abilene's city property. And again, that includes within 15 feet of the curb line in all right-of-ways, and then all the parks. And all this information can be found within this packet. But just as a brief summary, located on page 3 of the executive summary is a general breakdown of the entire management plan into what we did, what we found, and how to proceed following the information that we have. So if we skip forward here a little bit, what we did for the inventory itself was we actually had boots on the ground with a team of 5 people, and went to every tree on public property, mapped each tree with a GPS location, identified the tree, gave it a condition rating, identified the species, and then labeled it as far as what land use it was, such as residential, public, park, commercial. And then from that is where we were able to gather all this data and further get us a better representation of what we were able to find through this inventory data. So the general benefit of having an inventory is understanding what you have. And once you understand what you have, it's easier to manage and proceed with your findings. So in this packet, all of the data has been broken down into multiple different categories, but jumping forward to the actual important stuff, on page 16, we talk about the first area that was identified of tree canopy gaps, where we were able to take these points that we plotted and very easily see the areas of town in which are lacking public trees. So looking at that map on page 16, you're able to see in the south part of town, it's lacking canopy space, as well as on the east side of town, it's also lacking canopy space. Moving forward onto page 17, we have a map of all dead and dying trees. This map shows a priority map, basically, of what should be removed first. These are trees that are hazardous. These are on public spaces. These endanger your community. People walking on sidewalks, people in the parks, anything like that. These trees are dangerous and could fail at any moment. So these are trees that should be removed as soon as possible and prioritized, even on a limited budget. Finding a way to get these trees taken care of and removed is going to be the most beneficial aspect of this management plan. Looking at page 18, kind of foreshadowing to the future. This map is a representation of all ash trees in the community. There's a insect moving across eastern Kansas called the emerald ash borer. It's invasive to the state and it only targets ash trees. It's not a matter of when it gets here, but a matter of, or it's not a matter of if it gets here, but a matter of when. It's as far west as Lyon County, and has been suspected to be in Pottawatomie and Wabunsee County, and it's working this way. Unfortunately, once it makes its way this direction, there's not really anything we can do to stop it. So looking at that and foreshadowing, there's 106 ash trees that we were able to collect in this inventory. And unfortunately, once that gets here, those are all 106 trees that are going to have to be removed. So that's something to look forward to, something to budget towards, because those are, again, just trees that are recorded on public spaces. And so knowing that that's coming up as part of, in the near future, something to budget towards, something to look knowing that that's coming up in order to be prepared for that when that time does come. So then moving forward on page 19, 20, 21, and 23, we have actual management actions and recommendations. And what we've done here is compiled all of the data that we've gotten and given, exactly as it states, recommendations on how to use this data. What have we seen throughout town, and how can we improve the canopy overall? So the first thing that we have is increasing diversity. Abilene had a very good diverse canopy, but just continuing to improve that with new tree plantings, increasing the diversity across the community. For instances, when events like EAB, that Emerald Ash Borer, do come to town, we're not wiping out all of a certain population. Looking back at the data, silver maple comprises almost 30% of Abilene's total tree canopy. If there was to be an insect or a disease that would come in and target that silver maple species, 30% of the trees in the town would be wiped out. So that's why promoting that diversity is so important. It's just something to look forward to and really be mindful of for future plantings. The next item is promoting a younger canopy. Looking at the data that we collected, the vast majority of trees collected were what we classify as overly mature. These are all trees that are greater than 30 inches DBH, which is the diameter at breast height. What that means is that these trees have kind of entered the point in their life cycle where they're getting older, they're getting bigger, and they're starting to decline. So right now, with that manageable 104 number of trees needing to be removed, that's something that we can look towards. But then knowing that we have a much older canopy that's going to continue to age up and will need to be addressed as the time comes. So one of the ways that this can be done is by implementing management zones, coordinating what the high priority areas are. This will go a really long way in making it a little bit more manageable to work. Figure out what the high priority routes are, make sure your emergency routes are maintained regularly, your parks, downtown business district, anything that has a high level of public impact, make sure that's your highest quality area. Definitely remove the dead and dying trees, make sure that there's no hazard trees in that area, trying to keep it as clean and productive as possible. And then very lastly, again, just very simply, the removal of dead and dying trees should be probably the number one priority. To my understanding, the trees are owned by the city, but the actual maintenance of the trees is to be held within the homeowner's responsibility. However, even though that is said, I do highly, highly recommend, if at all possible, working towards trying to get the maintenance of trees towards the cities, towards the city. This can improve urban canopies, and it helps to better keep up with the inventory and know what you have and where it is. The last thing you want is for a family to be playing down in the park and have a dead or dying tree that is becoming a hazard to come down and cause a lawsuit. So making sure we get those dead and dying trees out is going to be the number one priority from this management plan. And then again, using this information from within this plan there should be direction on where to go from there. So once you have these trees identified and you're able to truly dig in deep and know what you have, it's going to be a lot easier to proceed forward with the maintenance of the canopy. So are there any questions?
Yeah. One few different questions. These different mapping layers are those available to us? Because I know we've got some people on our staff that are pretty savvy with GIS and it would be useful for them. There's that question.
Yeah. So this software that we use, it's called the Tree Plotter. And what we do is, like I said, we collect this data via iPad, and we have an actual GPS location of each and every one of these trees. All that data is logged, and then we're able to export that data as well as provide you access to that data. From there, we can send you that data and you can upload it to whatever GIS software you'd like. That way you have the running inventory, or you can also be added on to our Tree Plotter subscription. And so you have access to it that way as well. So all of the data is owned by us. It's not, even though we've done it through Tree Plotter, it is our data. And we did it for you. So by no means was there any cost to you or anything like that. It's data that we've collected that will be given to you and you can do with it as you please.
Excellent. Yeah, that was going to be that was my understanding, is this was something that was done not at the cost of the city.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty impressive data set for us to be able to have. Just like so many of our other issues and challenges we have with the city, there's a lot of trees that need to be addressed. Going in that route of prioritization, but even if you hit the dead and dying trees, there's still a lot of them. Is that as a way for the city to implement this information? And I'm just drawing a comparison line to sidewalks here, since we were just talking about that. Especially across all these residential areas, have you seen in other communities how that gets handled? I would assume the most efficient way is to be able to bid it out, and a contractor is able to get the low bid and knock out as much as possible. Have you seen any matching programs or things like that for dealing with trees? And then also, I know power company Evergy comes in every once in a while and does their own inventory, and they're not nice to trees. They just get them out of the way. So how does that also integrate in with this challenge?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's different programs. Unfortunately, they're not available all the time. We had a really, really great program called the IRA program that was only available to certain communities, and that was kind of a no match required up to $100,000 grant. But again, that was something that was put to us by the feds, and unfortunately recently with all the different things going on, it's proven to us that even things such as that we can't necessarily count on. So I have talked to some communities that have looked at implementing a small tax that has gone towards tree care, and that's something that I've heard pretty beneficial things about, because a lot of like most small towns in Kansas, having a legitimate tree budget is probably not something that's hot on the radar. So having some sort of leftover program or just some sort of funding that can go towards getting that contractor hired in is something that we're constantly working on, trying to find ways that we can help these smaller towns come up with funding for different programs like that. So yes, unfortunately, when Evergy comes in, sometimes they do more harm than good. But there's not really anything that we can do about that. I mean, talking to Evergy, I mean, we have a great relationship with Evergy, and talking to them, the number one priority is going to be making sure that people have power to their house, not a tree in their front yard. So they're all about it. They're all trying to make it, they try to make it as safe and clean as possible, but they also know that, you know, we all have jobs to get done, and getting electricity from point A to point B is really what they're trying to do. So as far as, you know, broad scale, how to tackle this, I've seen it multiple different ways. Getting a contractor to come in and just give bids, to kind of come in one fell swoop and just knock it all out, is probably going to be the most economical. It's going to be the most upfront cost, but once a crew is already mobilized, a lot of times you'll see some cost savings that way without having to have them make multiple trips to return and get it taken care of.
Great. Yeah, thank you. What are you thinking?
I can't top those questions. Those are great.
Oh, yeah. Just an idea to spark the idea for, even though we only got 2 commissioners here. We have a stormwater drainage fund that's assessed on our water bills, and that's an additional $1.25 for residences, and that brings in $55,000-$60,000 a year thereabout. So that I'm thinking of this as terms of a problem where you that could be a specified budget. It's only spent towards that. What's a sort of critical? Is there a critical amount or mass that you've kind of seen? And what does $55,000-$60,000 a year towards tree removal? How much would that do roughly?
I mean, it can go a long way. I mean, the first couple of years is going to be tough just because, like I said, you do have that, you know, those 100+ trees that are in need of removal right now. Once that upfront removal is done, and it's just a matter of maintaining, it'll go a really long way. I mean, $50,000 can completely, I mean, going back to that IRA grant that I was talking about, there's a community of Woodbine just down south by Harrington, and they had a contractor come in and bid just regular general pruning of all dead wood out of all city trees, and I think their quote came back at right at $25,000. That is a much smaller community, but it just goes to show that, you know, doing it in stages, and once you have those, you know, zones implemented, you know, and start working towards like a 3 or 4 year pruning cycle, it'd be a lot easier to maintain that. You can break the town into 4 different quadrants or 5 different quadrants and just have a company come in, focus on one set, and do that in like a 5-year rotation. And that's kind of what we recommend anyways, is like a 3 to 5 year pruning cycle. So something like that would be very beneficial. I mean, $50,000 to $60,000 to go strictly towards tree work is going to put you leaps and bounds ahead of where you're at right now.
One question that kind of sparked with me is you were talking about that tree plotter app that you use. Is there anything that you've seen in other communities where citizens are actually able to, so obviously you did the survey of it all, but almost a notification system of trees that are dead? Yes, and I know we've got, you know, a lot of those, but ones that are actually, I guess, causing or have the potential to cause public harm. I'm thinking overarching over sidewalks, over roads, power lines, things like that. Is there a way to implement? I guess not. Is there a way? Have you seen that in other communities where they're able to, I guess, get that to the top of their priority list in an easy way?
I mean, I'm not familiar with your system that you guys have right now. I know that in the city of Manhattan, you know, they have what they call report it. If a community member sees an issue such as stormwater drainage, broken sidewalks, broken curb lines, trees, hazard trees, trees in the way of stoplights, anything like that, they can go onto their website, click that report it button, and fill out like a little form that will give the information, the address, the issue, and kind of forward it on that way. As far as actually just having, you know, public accessibility to like access that inventory and like click on the tree or something, that's not something that I'm too familiar with. However, that is, you know, that tree plotter software that I was discussing, I mean, it does have the capabilities to, you know, really build on and put, if you have city crews out and they see a hazard tree, they can actually click on that tree, mark it as a hazard, or mark it to the top of the priority list as a work order. So that's a software that is available. I mean, it is expensive. I think for 1 year for a community like this, it would probably be around $8,000. So, if you're looking at that $50,000 range for a total tree budget, I don't know if that's something you'd really want to spend, a fifth of your budget on. But just that general report it app that Manhattan uses, I've seen really good success with.
Sure. Okay. That's a good idea, though. The city staff, if they're in an area, if they notice something, they can go on there and mark it. If it's low hanging, it's dead, low hanging over sidewalk, things like that. So,
Mhm. Yeah, and then with that too, I mean, once they have that, even if you guys aren't the ones doing the work internally, it'd be really nice to just hand to a contractor, annually or biannually, and just hand a contractor a list and say, hey, this is everything that's been reported. This is everything that we want to prioritize moving forward.
sure.
Two last questions from me. On this report, is there any publication restrictions associated with this? Because I was thinking it's a great report if it could go alongside where we have like our comprehensive plan and our parks master plan just on our city website. Because it is one of those things that other people are curious about. So is that something that we're able
Yeah.
to publish to our website?
Absolutely. And then it was not included in this document. On the very last page, page 29, you'll see a page that has the appendix listed there. That is a very comprehensive document that will also be included with this. And that has any information about anything that was mentioned within that packet. So that Emerald Ash Borer I was talking about, there'll be PDFs and other documents at the back of that indicating and linking back to all those different things mentioned within this management plan. So I think that appendix is probably another 30 or 40 pages. So really anything and everything tree related for the community can be found somewhere in this management plan.
And then my last one, and I may have missed this, so forgive me if you already said it. So say the city is able to develop a plan, starts making progress towards it. What is updating this inventory? What's the process of that look like? Is that just continuing engagement with Kansas Forest Service? Is like, hey, we've gone 5 years, we need an update, or?
Yeah. So in the state of Kansas, just due to the weather that we have and just, everything else that goes into trees. Trees are a living thing. Sometimes they die. So really we like to say, every 5 to 7 years, kind of is time for an update. If that tree plotter software, I say that once you have the data, it's a lot easier to maintain than it is to redo. So once you have that data, depending on what your software is and how you have it input into your system, that's something that can be maintained as you go. Again, once you have those priority zones figured out, if you want to just, work through different quadrants of town and keep that updated with city staff. To put this into perspective, like I said, we had 5 people doing this inventory. And again, that was boots on the ground. We walked to every single tree. We marked every single tree with an iPad, measured everything, identified everything. And I think we have total about 65 man hours to get all that data. So it is, maintaining it is going to be a lot less than that. So I think, yes, it is something that we could do at the Forest Service. But I think the hard part has already been done, and just going through and maintaining, updating if the tree's still there, updating the condition. That's something that city staff or even volunteers would be able to do very, very easily.
Great.
Thank you.
All right, Blaine, thank you so much for all the work and thank you for coming in person to present it. And it was perfect that it was on with the Arbor Day proclamation as well. So that was planned out well.
Yeah,
So,
perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. And our next item is item 2. Mr. Ryan, we are still conducting an official study session. Next item is 2B, Boards and Commissions Code Update Ordinance. Finance Director Johnson.
Thank you. During the annual bylaw review with the airport and the sister city as the liaison, I took the opportunity to look at the boards and committees ordinance because there's a few changes that they were wanting to make. I did notice that the sister city is the only board that has the stipulation that I'll quote, "The sister city committee shall be organized and operate according to bylaws and policies developed by the sister city committee and duly approved by the governing body." This is the only one that approves through the governing body any changes to bylaws. Airport is the one that has a bunch of changes, but I was getting ready to prepare the resolution for you to update that, but it's not part of the board's and ordinance requirement. So I guess my recommendation is approving some slight changes. Wanted to fix Minori and make that Omatama previously Minori, because that's been in there. And going ahead and striking that from Sister City rather than adding it to airport. So I'll leave that up to discussion for you guys to decide how you want to do that. And then specifically, the airport board has asked that we remove the stipulation of living within the city limits and change it in our specific on that board to within Dickinson County. And mainly because right now, we do not have a majority of them that live within the city limits. They actually have the majority that live in Dickinson County. So, and I think I could foresee that being an issue in the future to get qualified people for that board, just making it a Dickinson County rather than city limit one.
Sure.
Those are the only recommendations that I have so far.
Yeah, and especially on that airport one specifically with, we have authority to update that, obviously, and it does just make sense. I mean, not everyone that's utilizing that airport is going to live within city limits. So I know on some other boards and commissions, there's statute that dictates, but on this one, when we have the choice, it does make perfect sense.
Yeah, changes make sense.
All right, our next item is 2C 2025 City Streets Maintenance Project, Public Works Director Anderson. Last but certainly not least tonight.
Good afternoon, commissioners, once again. So this is a 2025 local street projects. So the background on this is requests for both estimates and bids were sent to contractors to begin local street projects during this 2025 calendar year. Funding from the projects will come from the Sales Tax Street Fund, Fund 037, which is collected quarterly. So pending the actual sales tax collected, an estimated amount of $440,000 will be collected in 2025. As a safe number associated with the projects, this year's expenditures are planned to be at or near $390,000. That's kind of just a limit that a safe number we set. Keep in mind that sales tax number can change a little bit depending on how much money is being taken in.
I'm gonna interrupt. I apologize for interrupting. You've read the packet, right? I've read it.
Okay.
Anything you want to specifically highlight out of this?
Okay, so no, perfect. That saves me a lot. So first of all, I'd like to publicly thank the community for voting this back in. I know there was a time period where it was expired. I know our street conditions are what they are and we need a lot of repairs. It's inevitable that things are going to cost us a lot of money to repair. The conditions of our streets didn't happen overnight. So we need to get back in a program, in a rolling program. So in a nutshell, I think two of the highlighted points, the 2-inch mill and overlay. If you guys seen the packets, you'll see that that dollar amount is very high in a city setting. The low bid, which I would be grateful that if we went that way on 3rd Street, was basically $175,000. And then microsurfacing is something that I wanted to throw out there. I've went and seen, Ron went with me, but I've seen what it has done on state highways. I've seen what it's done on county. And just an FYI for you, for the last several years, City of Salina is subcontracted with Vance Brothers and they do over $1 million of work a year. in the city of Salina, a much larger scale. I would like to do some micro surfacing here of all the streets that I listed, and then I listed them for you in your packets, so I think you had an idea. My ultimate goal was to have kind of a street in kind of each section of town, so that we can continue working on that plan. We didn't focus on one area of town because everybody in the community voted for this. And I think it's good to try and break that up and have something in every quadrant, basically, in my opinion. So let me just ask you, any questions that you have about the packet that you received? Basically, there were three things we were wanting to do. We were wanting to do a 2-inch mill and overlay on Northwest Third. We have several streets in town that I'd like to microsurface. Just an FYI, a microsurface uses an emulsion-based oil with an aggregate in it. It is not an overlay, but it's a combination. The emulsified oil is a combination of a sealant, an oil, and then the chip material in it. Basically, you treat the street just as you would any other project. You'd have to close it down. Generally, they are a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch thick, depending on the size of your aggregate to get your coverage. I think I kind of made a comment that I looked at some sealant options in there, and I had one contractor 100% honest with me and said that the conditions of your streets that need repair is far more above what just a standard sealant would do at this point. So being a little bit more aggressive with a micro seal, I feel is the way to go. I would love to mill and overlay everything in town, but the dollar amount, as you can see, is just outrageous for us to do that. So I have an area of a 2-inch overlay that it was mentioned. We can actually do that with part of this funding on Van Buren. And the reason I contacted Dickinson County is because they have plans to overlay. Of course, Dickinson County does all their overlaying on their own. They have their own crew, their own machine. The distance that we were going to do was 450 additional feet. What I was going to say is they are going to overlay Old 40 out west. I'm not sure if they're going all the way to Solomon, but they said they'd be coming right through there. And so they would just consider that a tag on of 450 feet and gave us honestly just the price of the oil and the material content and with the asphalt. They were willing, since we helped them out in a couple minor things with our good working relationships, to just do that footage for the cost expenditure in the actual material. So we're not getting charged any other mobilization or anything like that you would in a contractor. So, and then obviously some dirt patching that I would like to continue. Dirt patching is just another tool in our bag as a maintenance product. It's not, basically it's not meant to be a permanent fix. It is meant to take care of depressions, seal joints. It's one of the #1 ways that most road crews out there are patching roadways nowadays. KDOT has spent a lot of money in the last few years. Just this district alone bought seven of those machines at $80,000 a piece, and Dickinson County uses theirs all the time. We subcontracted with Dickinson County to have them and come in and do some trouble spots. Like I said, it's not a permanent fix, but it's a way just to give our life expectancy a little bit of time until we can get to them streets that on a big project. Any questions?
In the kind of, this is tough because you got materials as they change over time and all that, but in a rough window, what's life expectancy of a 2-inch mill and overlay versus life expectancy?
Well, when you look at engineering quotes, they'll all tell you that they have about a 10-year. And that's funny that you asked that, because I've seen overlays on state highways last longer, and I've seen them not last that long. So that 10-year window on a mill and an overlay is a safe number. Would you like to get 15 out of it? Absolutely, but it doesn't always happen. I personally feel in a town setting we would get that, and I feel the same way about the micro seal. It's generally a 7 to 10 year lifespan, but once again, in a city setting on city residential streets especially, I think we're going to get a lot, longer lifespan. Anything else?
Yeah, that's great.
I just wanted to say I appreciate you guys going through and doing this and getting it all on paper, so that way there's a plan. I think that's very important, especially with changes in leadership, changes in public works directors. I mean, it's good to have a record of that. And I think now that the sales tax, we've now collected it for a year now, so I appreciate you working on this over your tenure
Sure.
as you started and,
Sure.
you know, what, December?
Yeah, I
of
kind of started on it
23?
last year, and obviously we didn't have enough money to kind of get going, and now we can get this where we want to start rolling. And my personal plan is to, especially on the micro sealing, I'd like to do a big project every year with a 2-inch mill and overlay if we can afford it. And then I want to keep scattering out across the city with the micro seals. And like I said, with the expectant projected revenue, assuming we take that in, playing with a safe number instead of expenditure at all, what the plan would be, like I mentioned, is to put that money towards a bigger project. And we have bigger ones. We've got some streets that, to be honest with you, there's going to be base work that's going to have to be involved. If you mill them, there's not going to be anything left to put a nice solid street back on. And generally speaking, just shooting off the hip, if you start going above the mill and overlay and you start doing base work, you can take the mill and overlay price and times it times 3 or 4 for that same street distance when you're including base work. Because you're going to have to probably minimum go down 12 more inches, 12 to 18, 18 to 24 is ideal. But you got to get a solid base back in. And we've got a lot of streets that, honestly, that's the case we're in. We're bigger expenditures could easily come. So maintaining what we have right now is the safest way to keep them streets from getting into the next phase.
And so specifically on that base, I know obviously on some projects, so that 24 C-clip project, the base underneath was destroyed.
Yeah,
so we had to
and
do a
on
gate
the
order.
K-15 section / Buckeye down south, where we just opened it up on the C-clip project, and we had to have the stability of a leveling base, and there was a few patching areas that they went even deeper. In my opinion, when you drove on 15 prior to that project, yeah, you could see some problems, but you had no idea what was going on underneath the surface until you expose that surface. And I can already tell you there are several city streets that are in a way lot worse condition than K-15 was. And once we open them up, you're going to have no choice but to, I mean, in my opinion, on those projects, you plan for the base work because it's inevitable what I feel is going to have to happen on them.
So for this Third Street stuff, you're anticipating?
Yeah, so Third Street, honestly, Third Street has got problems. There's no doubt about it. And this section of phase I'm talking about is from Mud Creek out to Washington Street. You can continue on Washington on the other side, and you can take First Street as the same way, from basically Elm out to the railroad tracks. But I think now's the time to do something with Third Street before we do get into base problems. When you drive Third Street right now, you see the problems on the surface, but you don't see a lot of rutting and a lot of depressions going on yet. If you delay it and keep waiting for time to pass just because on a major thoroughfare, then you're asking for the problems, and then you're going to be doubling, tripling, quadrupling your money. So on that particular street, I feel we need to do it now while it's in a rough condition, but yet not in a state where it gets away from us.
And we've talked outside of meetings specific on that northeast area, Wildcat, Jayhawk.
Yeah.
Is there an actual base underneath that, or was that?
There
just
is.
built
So
without?
here's one thing in Kerry's department that I love now. I guarantee you back in the day, the standard of what the street was put in by a developer back in the day, they went with probably, in my opinion, what was a low grade. I've driven Jayhawk, I believe off the top of my head with my DMI device, it's 1,150 foot long. I did the calculations on that, and to mill and overlay it would be affordable. But we've got big problems up there. We need to go to the base. And that is a street that I'd like to put on the project next year and start calculating towards maybe some of these, hopefully overages, or not overages, but income off of the sales tax. to put towards a bigger project.
It's the excess revenue that comes in from the
Yes.
sales tax we're not expending. in that year.
Yes. There's a couple major streets on the Microsoft surfacing plan that you can see that we'll definitely get our test on. 10th Street from Buckeye to the hospital gets heavily used. For a residential street, Hilltop up there from Mulberry across over to Buckeye, you know, a lot of people cut through that way to get over to the grocery store area, and you know, it puts you right beside M&R Grill and the car wash there. There's just certain routes that get traveled more heavily. But overall, they're in solid enough condition that that microseal should hold them. I'd really like to get this, obviously it'll be a business item next meeting, but I guess one highlight I'd like to say on the Vance Brothers on the microseal is they're allowing us to piggyback off of City of Salina and Dickinson County, who they're moving in this summer with. So we are paying absolutely no mobilization fees. And what they've done for all three of the communities is basically set a price. So that's a phenomenal situation there. You've probably seen the other quote for the other microseal company, and I think their quote was a $20,000 mobilization fee on top of their price per square yard. So, but in order to get on everybody's schedule for this summer, during road maintenance times, we're looking to have, especially them two items, the mill and overlay and the microseal approved.
Thinking about third and fair parade season and all that.
Yes, and that's going to be a major thing, you know, with dealing with Schilling, who got the low bid, getting things lined up, and then whether they get here before August or if there's going to be that 10-day window where we don't want them really around. It'd be phenomenal if it's done before the parade day.
Yeah, it would.
But we're gonna kind of getting behind the eight ball of, they've got a lot of projects already lining up for their summer plans, and I've seen mill and overlays, as long as the weather holds out, come in October and November before. So ultimately, I want to get them all done this calendar year, though.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, good point. Definitely. We're looking at scheduling that. Definitely avoid that time frame. Also, we should probably send those other cities a nice thank you card for allowing us to not pay any mobilization expense.
Yes, that's actually the Vance Brothers offered that to us on
Yeah.
that. So
Well,
that's
we should send one of
phenomenal on
them
their
too.
part.
So potentially $20,000 cost savings right there. So, okay, well, thank you for putting this together. I think we've got a good plan for this
Yep,
year.
any other questions, just let me know.
Sure. All right. Thank you. Before we adjourn, City Manager Marsh, would you like to do your city manager's reports?
Commissioners, police officers Chuck Hune and Grant Pratt recently attended the FBI Law Enforcement Executive Development Association Leadership Institute in Salina. This seminar is designed to enhance leadership competencies in law enforcement personnel. Both officers will continue to participate in the FBI LEEDA offerings. So congrats to them. We've had 2 firefighters finish the firefighter academy since our last meeting. The Parks and Recreation Easter egg hunt is this Saturday, April 19th at 1 p.m. in Eisenhower Park. The Recycle Center will be closed Friday and Saturday, April 18th and 19th for Easter. The Spruce Way Water Line project is complete. I'm sure those people living along there are happy. And finally, on a sad note, today is Leanne's last meeting with the city. Her last day will actually be April 25th, and I just want to let her know how grateful I am for everything she's done for the city, for myself, and wish her the best in her new endeavor. So.
I'll speak real quick on behalf of the commission. Leanne, thank you. And congratulations to the 2 firefighters. And what was the first one? I'm going to forget now that I'm calling people out. 2 police officers as well. I should have wrote that down if I knew I was going to do that. So,
Yeah.
Thank you, Leanne.
Not typical to add something at the end of a study session, but we have a not so typical meeting here today. 2 things in my mind that wanting to address. One, I'll show a pointer. Well, first, are we still recording? I want to make sure that this still streaming to YouTube and all that. Okay, great, perfect. Just as points of public accountability, and reminders for the public and saying all that. Agendas are available online. Subscribe to our agendas, subscribe to the community engagement page if you want to be informed. That's the way to do it. If you're not able to make meetings, they're always recorded. Technology's refined now to where they're staying recorded and archived on YouTube. So that's how you know how things are going on. So point of vulnerability. I said something earlier in this meeting about the commission reached a consensus in the executive session, and then I said, now we're making the official action. That's my understanding of how executive sessions are supposed to play out. We have our discussion, we reach a consensus, but before that action's binding, we come out here and we make the vote public. That's procedure as I understand it. If I'm wrong, I want to know now in this meeting versus thinking about it. So.
I appreciate the opportunity to speak to that. I was tempted to jump in during that discourse, but chose not to. But I think it is safe to say that reaching a consensus within the purview of the subject matter that brings you into the executive session is appropriate. On that particular day, we were in an executive session to discuss the performance evaluation of non-elected personnel, being the city manager. And without revealing what was discussed in that context, it is appropriate to discuss the terms and conditions of Mr. Marsh's employment. And we cannot take binding action in an executive session. That's what the Kansas Open Meetings Act says. And it is very common to go into an executive session to discuss a particular topic, knowing that there will be a future agenda item at which binding action will be taken on that same subject. In this case, I'll speak in generalities, but it would be appropriate for, in the context of an evaluation, for the commission or Mr. Marsh to suggest a change to a contract. And if everyone generally either implicitly or explicitly agrees that they're comfortable with that, then I would take the lead, come up with a contract in between meetings. We certainly didn't have it in there that day, and bring it back to you so that it can be approved publicly and openly as is required under the Kansas Open Meetings Act. So consensus is acceptable in an executive session if it's on the subject that you're in there to talk about. And today we took binding action, which is what you cannot do in an executive session, and why we did it today. So I'm comfortable with how that occurred.
All right, thank you. The second portion is, I'm thinking a lot of different things. See if I can get through it. And this microphone's really loud too, so that doesn't help when you're if any citizen has concerns, issues, reach out. Trevor at Abilene.com. Right. Yeah. And people reach out and all things but I've been on here 7 years now. And you hear this whole people that's like, it doesn't matter unless we hear about it. And also, if you're going to reach out and you're going to reach out in a way that is telling us what to do, probably not going to be really receptive to that. So, but to that point of vulnerability, you have issue and just the unhealthiness of this commission. We struggle with it. We're trying to figure out what we're supposed to do. And I've heard the commission needs to do something about this. That's what people have told me, if I can claim that line. We can't do much. Every member up here is duly elected. They're entitled to their opinions. I can have disagreements on how things are handled, but I cannot change that. We cannot change how those things are done. That is entirely up to that individual commissioner, how they choose to handle themselves. I don't like it. I'm open to ideas. If you're wanting to critique me, reach out, tell me what you think we're doing wrong. So Yeah, absolutely.
At this point, we're just kind of in a. free-
Yeah.
To meetings and I get asked why I'm here because I own a business downtown. I also live on Spruce Way for the project that you just finished. Very thankful for that. Really, we need city streets worked on bad. You can't go on a walk. You can't have tourists in town without them tripping, and there's lots of things I'm sitting here watching and listening to. I am friends with him, and I want all of this has to stop. Wendy needs to come to meetings. Amy needs to come to meetings. You guys, I understand if you can't make it to all, but I have come to probably 10 to 20 this year, just off the cuff, because I find out it's every other week, whatever. And they're not here. And I think that everyone should make them be here in some way or another. I get it. You have something that might come up one time, but not all the time. These two girls are never here. And he can't, like, I'm just, as I'm watching this, I'm like, this is very disruptive. All these people here are shaking their head. I'm shaking my head like, John, let's not throw a tantrum today. Hey, I get it. You don't want us to spend all these extra dollars. We have to spend money. We're going to need to spend it because our town is literally deteriorating and we can't grow. We can't have people driving in and out of our town. Like, this is just me on the outside, like looking in on this. Like, we'll have to spend some money. And now, and you're thinking about future, well, let's talk about today. Like, we can't get these tourists in and out of town because and the water with the drains are a problem. I mean, have you tried to drive around them? You can't. I mean, on my Jeep, who is very much equipped to go through terrain, has issues. I mean, and that is on a night at 2 a.m. when I'm done working at my store and a rain has come because we have more than 30 days of rain a year. So I, as someone, and I know that you guys are all trying to navigate this legally, him walking out, I mean, at some point, and her not showing up, there used to be during COVID where you guys called in and we could, if you can't make a meeting, you call. I mean, I don't know what you guys can hold them to the fire about, but I'm very disappointed to the point, I mean, I keep getting people asking me to run. I don't want to because I understand people are this is a thankless job. They want to blame you for everything. I'm part of a lot of group organizations here in this community. And like, Julie and I talk a lot and I say, it looks really bad for our town when we're doing nothing but complaining about it. When, all we want to do is be, in general, I feel like we should all be wanting to make Abilene a better community one way or another. I mean, and that I'm a glass half full kind of girl, so don't come to me with a problem unless you got a resolution. And when I first started coming to these meetings, being that I am friends with him, I listened to you get mad last week or last meeting, and I thought, why is he getting like that? Because I don't understand. And so then I sat back and I did a lot of investigating the last 2 weeks, and I'm not happy with what just happened again today. Him walking out like that is very disrespectful to every person that came to this meeting. And it doesn't matter if he's trying to make a point, he should not have done that. And I don't think I ain't gonna call him and hold him to the fire on that too, because I mean, in general, we don't throw tantrums. We are all adults. And he ran for this commission. He's supposed to be speaking for the people of this community. She is, you both are. And I am very thankful that you guys even show up, because at this point, everyone thinks it's an option, which I don't think it should be. If you ran for that, you should come here two times a month and do what you've been elected to do. So, and I am under the impression that they do get some little stipend of a paycheck. I mean, if I don't show up for a job, I hope they don't get paid for it. I mean, just on the outside looking at it, because we're pinching pennies these days. And so anyway, I do plan to have a conversation with, any one of you guys at any time. And I've talked to Brandon before too. I want to see our city thrive. And tantrums don't help make it. If you don't get your way, well, you made a good point to him in that meeting. I mean, openly saying, yeah, okay, but I feel like the whole project needs to be funded. So he didn't get his way and he stormed off. That's not right. and we voted and you guys voted and said, we want to move forward. Then we should be moving forward. He doesn't like that, then he should figure out how to come about you guys better instead of, throwing a tantrum. So, and have a better point, because at this point, we need those streets fixed. We need this town getting, the touristy people coming through. And I mean, anyway, sorry. I'm just coming to this meeting just
Yeah.
very, very, very busy.
Thank you for your comments. I won't get in your way, Commissioner Witt. I will
I'm
vouch.
done.
I will vouch for them on this one specific meeting. I don't know the rest. There are some issues. I won't discuss them publicly. That is on them, but I will vouch for them that they had very good reasons for not being here today. That's all I'm going to say in regards to that. So, yeah. Commissioner Witt, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, just to echo, if you want a commissioner or the governing body to understand your perspective on something, the best way to do that is to reach out by email. That is something that we all have access to. And
Every single one of them is read. I can
and
speak for
everyone is
myself at
read.
least.
Yep. So
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there, but really just want to take a second to thank everyone for being here. Thank the citizens of Abilene for electing us and allowing us to serve. It's, we don't get to dictate that we get to serve on this commission. It is being elected by the people. And that's obviously a bedrock of our democracy. It's, I should say, our constitutional republic. I'm going to get crucified for that one. I think one of my biggest things, and this has been something that it's been weighing on my heart a lot. It's hard to get vulnerable in front of cameras up here. This unhealthy environment, it takes its toll. It's taken its toll on me. I know it's taken its toll on other commissioners. I know it takes its toll on staff. I just want to echo my appreciation to everyone. Like I said, I won't try to speak for everyone else, but I put on a good face for the public, because that's what you feel like you need to do. But, internally, all of this conflict over time, it does take its toll. And what you find yourself coming here the second and fourth Tuesdays of every month at 4 p.m. and entering into fight or flight mode immediately, because that's what your body's telling you is going to happen. And that's not a healthy way to make decisions in life, especially in a public governing body like this. I mean, that is just absolutely one of the worst ways to come at decision making. Public discourse is fantastic. I appreciate the heck out of it. Civil public discourse is so much more meaningful. It accomplishes more long-term. I understand it's not the sexy thing to do, and it doesn't get a rise out of people in that moment. But long-term, what we are doing as a society right now is unsustainable. Before I go on another tangent, love thy neighbor without caveat. You may have disagreements. We all do. We all will. But show respect. We're all in here doing the best we can, the best we know how. Nobody's a master at any of this. Nobody's a master at life. Love thy neighbor. Be better. With that, I would consider a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion has been moved and I will second it. Motion has been moved and seconded. Do we have any further commission discussion?
No, sir.
Seeing none, we'll do a roll call vote. Commissioner Witt.
Yes.
Myself, yes. Motion carries. We are adjourned.